So we will be recording this and we will share the link with this. This is another in just refreshers. None of these trainings are mandatory trainings, but we hope that it will give you information that you can use in your activities as a partner. The next training, we are going to actually be trying to get one of the command master chiefs to present the different accession programs to the Coast Guard to be able to share with the students that we see that may not make the cut to get into the academy, or people who just have other interests. I don't know if any of you saw, the Coast Guard did just publish something on some of the technical schools that are now offering letters of intent for certain rates in the Coast Guard, and we will send out that link. It would be an important thing to share with students that are interested in coming in on the enlisted end. But tonight, Ken Jacobs is going to talk to us about outreach refreshers for reaching out to the high schools. And if you are not on mute, if you could mute, that would be great. And I will be monitoring the chat for questions at the end. And so, Ken, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for being with us here this evening. This is a refresher. We do know that everyone at some point or another has participated in some form of outreach, but we all learn from one another, and so tonight, as we make some suggestions about how best to conduct outreach, we hope that we can elicit some responses from you, some feedback, and some helpful hints that we can share with everyone on how to conduct outreach. So let me just say that we've tried to provide information here based upon information that we've gleaned from a wide variety of different people, from anywhere from the admissions office to partners working out in the field, and we work with a great many different partners in support of this program. So Kim, if we could move forward, please. Slide 2. Okay, so
Jerome Powell says
prices
are and a path
so again, if you could mute, if you're not, if you could mute and you're watching, that would be really great. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So our purpose is to identify and attract prospective candidates for the Coast Guard Academy, to describe the Academy and the Coast Guard to prospective educational influence who will help us in those endeavors, and to describe the Academy experience. And we're going to talk about some of the products that we have at our disposal to be able to do that efficiently and effectively. Slide 3. So, but before we do that, we're going to talk a little bit about the what, where, why, and how of outreach. So outreach is the act of developing a relationship with an educational influencer. Educational influencers come from a wide variety of different areas, and but the most common educational influencer that we work with are high school counselors. So we're going to focus a little more on high school counselors probably than anyone else. High school counselors have a relationship with the students in his or her school. The students typically trust the counselor. They don't know who we are, and they don't know whether to trust us. But if we develop a relationship with that counselor and that counselor feels good about our programs, that counselor will then share that information with his or her students, and we'll have access to those students through that counselor. Slide 4, please. So Why is outreach important? Well, you know, the Coast Guard Academy is very small. We have a limited number of admissions officers to cover a very, very large area throughout the United States. And so it's important for us to partners, I should say, working out in the field to work together to develop relationships on a local level, to be the face of the admissions office in our local communities. And the way that we can best do that is to develop these relationships with educational influencers, and to use the Touch program. And for anyone who hasn't used the Touch program in the past, it really is a program where we reach out to someone, we establish an initial contact. After that initial contact, we follow up with them in a variety of different ways, such as sending information and doing follow-up meetings and so forth. And each time we do something to be in contact with that influencer, that's a new touch. And Mr. Pinch, when he was with us, did a training called the 9-Touch program. And I've used the 9-Touch program for many years. The theory of that program is that after you've touched an educational influencer 9 times, you will have established an enduring relationship. And it just puts our program in a better light once we've established that enduring relationship. Slide 5, please. So who are these educational influencers we talk about? Well, they can be just about anyone in the community that has access to students who may at some point consider the Coast Guard Academy as an option for college. They can be college counselors at high schools, guidance counselors, teachers, coaches, high school administrators. I was in Columbiana County High School just a couple of days ago, and was very enthusiastically met by the principal there, a fellow by the name of Jeff Jackson. And Mr. Jackson was very, very interested in learning about the Coast Guard Academy and asked that we send additional information to the school. So we never know who at a school or an event is going to have a real interest in the Coast Guard Academy, but we have to be prepared to begin developing that relationship with whomever it is. Teachers are, especially math and science teachers, are often very interested in our programs, and it's great to establish relationships with them. Other high school administrators, guidance secretaries, or secretaries to the college counselors in the schools can be very helpful. They can keep us apprised of events that are coming up, college fairs and other events where we might have an opportunity to meet with students. Community leaders are also important, and there are a wide variety of community leaders in every community that, if we establish a relationship with them and they're speaking highly of the Coast Guard Academy and its programs, it can be very helpful for us. Slide 6, please. So where are these, or where can we develop these relationships? Well, as I said, local high schools are very important. College events and college fairs, I should say, and congressional events are especially important. Having a relationship with the congressional folks in your local area gets you on their radar for any events that they're going to do. And of course, the Coast Guard Academy doesn't accept a congressional nomination, but that doesn't mean that congressman or senator doesn't want us to attend their events. They want to give the Coast Guard an opportunity typically to be there to talk about what the Coast Guard has to offer. However, the problem with that is the fact that we don't have to, our candidates don't have to seek a congressional nomination, so we're often not on their radar. So it's good to reach out and just let congressional officers know that you are in the area and you're available to attend their events if one should come up. And that's usually as simple as just calling the congressman or senator's local office and saying, that you're an admissions partner for the Coast Guard Academy and you'd like to be on the list for any upcoming congressional events. High schools and other areas, I'll just say that, I spend a lot of time on the road. I go back and forth to Florida, back and forth to Georgia quite a lot. And when I'm out on the road, one of the things that I like to do is stop at high schools along the way. Now, I'm obviously not going to be developing an enduring relationship with those high schools, but what I do is I get information into the school about the Coast Guard Academy. I put my report in so that the Coast Guard Academy is aware of the fact that I've visited that school, and hopefully what we'll do over time is put partners in that area in touch with the people that we've developed relationships with in those other areas. So it is pretty important to develop those relationships out of area. If you have the opportunity to do it, you're off on vacation or whatever, it's very useful. Okay, next slide, please. 7. So how do we go about doing this? How do we go about performing this mission? Well, obviously, we're going to make that initial contact, get in contact with somebody at the school, let them know, that we'd like to stop by, make an appointment, stop by and talk about the Coast Guard Academy and its programs, ask about meeting with students. Meeting with students is obviously a very important part of what we do. I like to ask to have an opportunity to meet with students who are basically qualified for the programs that we offer at the school, usually in a small meeting room with the college counselor or guidance counselor present, and do a typical briefing, let the students know what we have to offer. As I said before, the touch program is very important. You want to keep that relationship going and growing, and so I typically send a follow-up email after I have an initial meeting with any educational influencer. I will attach an electronic version of the current CGA profile, as well as the current AIM brochure, and a little copy of that Bears Den flyer that has the QR code on it. I always send that along in electronic form to all of the counselors that I meet with. And again, that email, that in and of itself is a touch. I like to use GPO to send information out to the individual counselors. And the reason that I like to use GPO is we just, the way the GPO ordering is set up, we can't get enough of the brochures and stuff that we need to be able to distribute to the high schools. These 2 brochures, for instance, we can only get 1 or 2 of these at a time. So if you're going to meet with, 20 high schools over the course of a couple of weeks, well, you're not going to end up with enough of these to be able to distribute them to high schools. So it's a little bit of an impediment in that respect. So if you send a package of information out to the individual high schools after you've met with them, addressed specifically to the counselor that you met with, that again, it's another touch. And typically what happens, and the reason this is really good, is GPO is going to send you a notice telling you when they've sent out the package of information, and you typically get a notice from UPS letting you know when it's arrived. And so once it's arrived, you can call that counselor up and say, had some information sent out to you, and I'd like to know if you'd like to meet and go over the information that you've received. So I think that it's a pretty good system of keeping the touches going and building that relationship. Whenever I meet on an initial visit with the counselor, I really reinforce AIM. If a school has never heard of the Coast Guard Academy and students haven't expressed any interest in the Coast Guard Academy, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to get a student to apply to the Coast Guard Academy who's a senior student. If we're there, like I'm in schools right now in December of 2023, how likely is it that I'm going to get a senior to apply before February 1st to attend next year's incoming class? Not really very feasible. However, there's a good possibility that if we explain the program and get people in the school excited about AIM, that we could get some rising seniors from that school to apply to attend the AIM program next summer. So I put a lot of emphasis on the newly informed counselors and students about AIM. It's such a wonderful, valuable program, and I think that we've all probably seen on the new profile that 55% of the class of 2027, 55% attended AIM. That's huge. That's a huge number, 55%. So I think that's something that is worth reinforcing. So always ask your college or high school counselor that you meet with, rather, about upcoming college fairs. It's important to know if they're going to have one in the school or if there are any in the local communities. Also, area events. Last Friday, I was invited to attend an event here in Ohio, in New Philadelphia, Ohio, and there were 20 counselors at that event. It was an association of the Tusky Valley counselors, and I had an opportunity to make an admissions briefing to the 20 counselors, and then they set me up to meet with an additional 40 senior students. Again, probably not very likely we're going to get those seniors to apply for the Coast Guard Academy, but hopefully they'll talk a little bit to other students, maybe some juniors, about the AIM program. So. Okay, slide 8. No, slide. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just say that this is the package of information that I typically like to bring into the school. I take 3 or 4 brochures of everything that I've personally received. A good supply of AIM brochures. One of the little banners. We can only get 5 of these at a time. So if you order a couple of packages to have them delivered to your house, you'll be able to get enough banners to use for a while. These little Bear's Den cards are useful to put in there. I love the new little flyers that we have that give some basic information on the back, and it kind of looks like a flyer that the counselor can hang up. But they do love the banners. I'm kind of sorry we can't get the big banners anymore. When you go into a counselor's office and you see all of these large banners all strung around the entire room, and then we have to give them one of these little dinky ones. It's not always that great, but at least it's something. So, okay. Kim, progress to slide 9, please. So there are, of course, 2 ways to go about doing this. You can either contact the high school. Some high schools actually demand that you contact them in advance rather than and make an appointment rather than just dropping in. And I will usually do that on a day when I'm going to go out and visit schools. I'll make an appointment the day before or a few days before to make sure that I'm going to be able to meet with someone. But when I'm traveling or a little farther away from home and I have an opportunity to drop in, I will do the drop in. I had to go to Twinsburg yesterday, which is about an hour away from here, to meet with another auxiliary member to talk about a marine safety program. And I passed Twinsburg High School on the way. So, why not take that opportunity? If you're passing a high school, if you got a few extra minutes, drop in, give them your card, give them some information. If they can meet with you, fine. If not, then make an appointment to come back. At least you've gotten some information into the school. Okay, so, all right, so slide 10, please. Okay, so slide 10, the profile of the class of 2027. I think we've all seen that it's available on the Bear's Den. Some pretty good stuff going on there. Every counselor you meet with really should have one of these in their toolkit when you leave. But again, I also include this in the electronic attachments that I send out to the email that I send to counselors in my follow-up. So the class profile, the AIM brochure, and the small Bear's Den flyer with the QR code on it. Those are the three that I like to attach electronically. Okay, so let's go through the class profile. Slide 11, please. So the funnel for this year, we had 1,938 applications received, 1,781 completed, 427 appointed, and 292 finally enrolled, plus 8 international cadets. So pretty big numbers there. One of the things that high school counselors don't understand about this profile, and I get the question a lot, why do you have 427 appointed and only 292 enrolled? And of course, not everyone accepts their appointment. So yeah, we have to make a point to explain that to them. So, next slide, please. Okay, so background information. This is pretty important stuff to share with the counselors or whomever you're meeting with, educational influencers. That 37% of our incoming classes is female, 31% underrepresented minorities, including, of course, first-generation college students. That 90% were varsity letters, received a varsity letter, 71% team captains, 25% in band, 55% attended AIM. Again, that's just huge. So 37% legacies, 15% attended scholars, 7% attended college previously. Small number, but still important. 64% had indicated that they were interested in technical majors, and the average PFE score is 227. Not too bad there. Okay, next slide, please. So the Corps cadets, we had incoming 292, total of 1065, men 183, 63% of the incoming, 109 women, 37% of incoming, 94 URMs, 32%. As I said before, 8 international students for a total of 300, and the current class size is 1095. Next slide. So the current academic data, 46% are in the top 10% of the class, their high school class, I should say. 82% are in the top 25% of their high school class, and 99% are in 50% or above. So okay, next slide. And again, this is all stuff that's important to the counselors and the school administrators, the principals. They want to know, they want to have a good idea of what kind of student has the possibility for success at the Coast Guard Academy. What are we actually looking at? And so for the counselor to know that you know 100% of our applicants have a grade point average of 3.0 and above. That's pretty important for them to know. We don't, and it's not that it's a waste of time to send us students who have a 2.8 grade point average. They're just probably not going to be. They don't have a very good likelihood of success at the Coast Guard Academy. So we don't want to get anyone's hopes up unnecessarily. Okay, next slide, please. So this also very important to college counselors in high schools. They want to know what our SAT scores look like, and so it's important that we know that the average or the median SAT score for math on the SAT is 660, critical reading 650, and then on the ACT, next slide, please. The ACT, we're looking at a median score of 28 on math and 31 for English. So again, that immediately tells them, or gives them some idea of which students in their school have the propensity for success at the Coast Guard Academy. So pretty important stuff. Now, okay, so enough for the profile. The other important thing on the profile is that the contact information for the admissions office is pretty clearly displayed on the bottom right corner, so that's important. The other valuable tool that we always need to make sure that we have with us, and I understand some new ones are on their way, and that's the pocket guide. If you don't have a pocket guide, you should try and get your hands on one of these. These are our best friend. It really is something that we need to have in our toolbox. Next slide, please. Sorry about that. So the thing that the pocket guide provides us is all the appropriate messaging, and if you don't know something, it gives you a quick reference to look up right then and there, because it's so important that we maintain consistency. We all need to be saying the same thing about the Coast Guard Academy and its programs, and it's all in this pocket guide. Fits right in your shirt pocket. Very easy to pull out and say, "Oh, let me just check that real quick. Oh yeah, well on average, 15 cadets spend first, second class semester at another U.S. Service Academy, and so you can pull this out and just get that information right then and there, and it gives you evidence to back up the messages that you're presenting to that educational influencer. I'm sorry. And it's also good to draw on our own personal experiences. Some of us have military backgrounds and so forth. It's always good to be able to draw on that, make it sound a little more real, a little closer to home for people. I think that it's really important to try and build your own personal experiences into the message that you're presenting to educational influencers. Next slide, please. So, what are these messages to educators? Okay, so we're working to identify and attract prospective candidates for the Coast Guard Academy. We must describe the Academy experience accurately and consistently and passionately. So that goes back to what the pocket guide provides you with. In every conversation you have with educators, um, our description of the academy and the Coast Guard Academy should be compelling, and most importantly, it should be aligned with the messages that are spelled out in the pocket guide. That's what that pocket guide is for, and it's very, very important to use it to keep you keep all of the proper messages fresh in mind. Slide 20, please. So it's important that educators understand that the Coast Guard Academy is a full scholarship school. There are no fees. Room and board is paid for. Everything is paid for, and the students get a monthly stipend for their books and their uniforms and personal spending. And the discretionary part of the stipend increases for the first 2 years. So it's important that we share that with them. A lot of these students, although they're very bright, they come from financial backgrounds that would not enable them to go to college, maybe if they had to pay for out-of-pocket expenses. So 21, please. So our top messages to educators, right? We're asking them to refer their top math and science students to the CGA, and that's a really important message for them to get. We want your top math and science students to look at this program. We need to tell them that it's academically rigorous, highly selected. It's a 4-year military undergraduate education, which is something that there are some students that are looking for just that. We need to convey the prestige and tradition of a service academy education, emphasize life-changing outcomes, a college degree, a commission in the military, a job right out of college, graduate school opportunities, and career satisfaction. I mean, we have the highest number of graduates of any service academy that end up making the branch or the Coast Guard a career. So identify and challenge misconceptions. You know, a lot of people still think that the Coast Guard Academy requires a congressional nomination. So it's a good opportunity for you to make sure that they understand that that is a misconception, that anyone has to get a congressional nomination to apply to the Coast Guard Academy. Slide 22, please. Okay, so it's also important to talk about how the Coast Guard Academy differs from other service academies. I think that you know, we have to emphasize the benefits of small size, emphasize greater access to graduate school. Underprepared applicants have an opportunity to go to prep school at no charge, Plus, they're going to get paid a salary, although they're going to have to pay some out-of-pocket expenses out of that pay, but they're going to get paid a monthly rate at the E2 rate. And so we want to emphasize the unique Coast Guard missions, right? We're a humanitarian agency. Regulatory and our missions are humanitarian, regulatory, and preventing threats to the nation's borders. So pretty important stuff. And emphasizing satisfaction, right? That 4 out of 5 graduates choose to remain in the Coast Guard beyond their initial obligation, which is a much higher rate than the other the DoD academies. Okay, slide 23, please. So these students, to become successful candidates for the Coast Guard Academy, will exhibit a strong moral character. They will have demonstrated leadership experience, whether that's through Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Boy State, Girl State, Junior Achievement, Habitat for Humanity, school, student government, any of these types of things that demonstrate how they've served as a leader in the past are important to include. To be among the top 25% of the class, that they're going to have to score a minimum 620 on the SAT math section, and that 4 years of math is probably advisable. They're going to have to hit the ground running in calculus in the fall of their freshman year at the Coast Guard Academy. We're ever working to increase the number of minority applicants, including first-generation college students at the Coast Guard Academy. It's our mission to strive to ensure that we're out there pushing that message. These candidates will have an interest in engineering, math, and/or science as a major, and may have the possibility to contribute to the Coast Guard Academy music, extracurricular, and athletic programs. 24, please. So the eligibility criteria is also very important to share with our educational influencers, particularly in areas that might be close to the nation's borders. That it's important for them to know that they can be U.S. citizens, born or naturalized. So that's a very important component. 17 to 22 years, high school graduate or equivalent, with no dependents and no debt. So a couple of very important things. Okay, 25. Okay, so we want to talk about the campus tours. It's important for high school counselors to know that students will have the opportunity to take a tour of the Coast Guard Academy. Admissions briefings are held most Mondays, Fridays, and on select Saturdays. The briefings are held in the admissions office briefing room, and they're usually followed by a cadet-led tour. So, next slide. There are a number of campus visits. If you're not familiar with those campus visits, it is important that you become familiar with them. Again, they are in our pocket guide. So make sure you get one of these when the new ones come out, and they should be coming soon. So campus visits include Bears Day. That's a one-day program held in the fall and spring for high school students and their families. There's the Fall Cadet for a Day program. It's an overnight program for students who were qualified but not accepted to participate in AIM. So it's a great program, and a lot of students do take advantage of it. The Genesis Invitational is for minority students and first-generational families. The Coast Guard Academy will bring a parent and a student to the Coast Guard Academy for it really amounts to a two-night stay. They arrive, I think, on a Sunday night. They're on the campus all day Monday, overnight Monday night, and then the students are overnight typically with the cadets on Monday night. Parents stay in the hotel, and so there are tours and throughout both days for the parents, and the students, of course, have an opportunity to spend time with cadets and learn more firsthand what cadets are doing at the Coast Guard Academy. There are admissions workshops in admissions and in other places around the country. So these workshops are usually led by someone from admissions to give educational influencers, students, and parents a briefing on what the Coast Guard Academy has to offer, what its programs are, and so forth. The Academy Experience Program, another overnight orientation for applicants with appointments. And the RISE program. The RISE program is an extended orientation program taking place for several days immediately prior to the start of SWAB summer. Okay, so make sure you are at least familiar with these programs so you can talk a little bit about the opportunities that students will have to visit the Coast Guard Academy and under what circumstances. 27, please. So AIM, you know, I could just go on and talk about AIM and the involvement that we and the Coast Guard Auxiliary have had in AIM and the impact that wonderful people like John and Carol Johnson and many others have had through the many years that they've been involved in the AIM program. It is a fabulous program for rising seniors, and it is an opportunity for second-class cadets to use as a capstone experience in leadership. So it really is a great program. It's a total immersion in cadet life for rising seniors to really get some idea of what it would be like for them to apply, get accepted, and attend SWAB summer the following year. So and a lot of these students, especially those who ultimately become successful, just eat this stuff up. So I know you already do, but I can't reinforce it strongly enough. Get out there and talk about AIM to these junior students and tell them about the possibility of doing something different. You know, a lot of these students have never been out of their local communities. I did a lot of outreach out in Montana and Wyoming and North and South Dakota, and you know, these kids had never been outside of their own county, let alone out of their own state, and let alone going all the way to the East Coast. So it's a phenomenal, life-changing experience for a lot of these students. And the fact of the matter is, unless we've been there, they don't know anything about it. So it's a great opportunity to get out there and learn something new about their world. And I'll tell you, those kids then become our greatest advocates because they go back to school and they start talking about what a monumental, life-changing experience it was for them to spend a week in New London, Connecticut. So, okay, next slide, please. So a lot of these students, families make less than $160,000 a year. They really don't have a lot of extra money to spend on things like going to the Coast Guard Academy. Well, the Coast Guard Academy does provide financial assistance for a promising candidate. They're going to look at whether or not that candidate has the potential to be successful at the Coast Guard Academy, of course. But if they do, they're going to help them get there if they need that financial assistance. So if you have a student who wants to go, make sure that you call the admissions officer. Let them know that you have a student who wants to come to AIM or wants to come to some other campus program, but the family struggles financially, and what can we do to help get them some financial assistance to get out there to the Coast Guard Academy. 29, please. So we were all very excited a few years ago when the Coast Guard Academy announced that we are finally getting a new major, and cyber systems is something that is being very highly received, not only by the students around the country, but also by the educational influencers who agree that this was a very important major for the Coast Guard Academy to offer. Make sure that you do talk with the educational influencers that you meet with on your initial contact about the Academy's majors. Very important to get that out there. Very important for them to understand what opportunities we have available to students coming to the Coast Guard Academy. 30, please. So it's important that educational influencers know that the Coast Guard Academy is a Division III school, that's part of NUMAC, and that the football program is part of the New England Football Conference. But personally, I don't go too deep down in the weeds about the athletic programs. I think that the educational influencers just need to know the basics when you meet with students and parents. I think that that's the best time to go in depth and talk very specifically about all the programs that the Coast Guard Academy offers. 31, please. It is, however, important for the educational influencers to know that every cadet must participate in competitive athletics in 2 of 3 seasons that the Coast Guard Academy offers. Intercollegiate, club sports, and intramural sports. So there's opportunities for everyone, but it's also very important for them to understand that 62% of all cadets at the Coast Guard Academy participate in collegiate sports, and it's a much higher number than most civilian colleges and all of the other DOT military academies. 62% of the cadets play intercollegiate sports. So very, very important thing to share. 32, please. Okay, so one thing I left it for last specifically because I like to talk about the fact that a lot of counselors, after you've met with them, will offer you the opportunity to come in and set up a table in the lunchroom and talk to students there. I personally have never found this very useful. I think it's very useful to the enlisted side of the house because they're offering a very different message than what we have to offer. There are only a limited number of students who are going to qualify to go to the Coast Guard Academy. And if we can identify those students and speak directly with them, I think it's the best way to reach the potential candidates for the Coast Guard Academy. I think it's much of a waste of time to set up a table and stand in a lunchroom. I've just never really gotten much bang for that buck. And it takes a lot to go out to a high school and set up a table and be prepared to sit through a lunch period and have students walk by and take stuff and then find it laying on the floors in the halls as you're walking out of the school. So, to each their own, but for my money, it's better to meet with students in a small group along with the college counselor or guidance counselor than to try to attract students to the Coast Guard Academy in a lunchroom. Kim, that's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions folks might have. Hey, one other thing that I want to just share with you real quick. This is really important. Mr. Pinch used to demand that when I came back from my missions, that I have a pocket load of these and getting contact information for the counselors that you meet with and the other educational influencers that you meet is just very, very important to the admissions office. So always make sure you get a card or get some form of contact information from whomever you met with, and make sure you report on that in your event report as soon as you get back to a place where you can do that. So that's all I have. Questions, anyone?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Ken, for doing this presentation. Certainly, if anybody has any questions, one person did ask, 64% of the intended technical majors seems low. and asked if the other 36% are government and management, and that would be yes. The non-technical majors would be government and management. And people may come in, it may be a little bit slightly higher coming in, but after the first year, some people will switch to a different major. And that is one thing, and Ken, maybe you could comment on this. This is one thing that is different about the Coast Guard Academy. I mean, the majors, there are only 9 majors. So if a person really is dead set on a language major, it's not going to happen at the Coast Guard Academy. And they need to know that we can't promise things that they'll not be able to get.
That's right. That's right. We can share with students that if time permitting, they may be able to go across the street to Connecticut College and spend some time over there taking classes and things that are of interest to them that are not available at the Coast Guard Academy. But they already have a very demanding schedule, and most cadets find it very difficult to go across the street to Conn College to take additional classes.
Any other questions? You can either unmute and ask the question of Ken, or feel free to put it in the chat.
I have a question.
Okay, shoot.
Chris Cotis from Minnesota. My son went to the academy. He's an officer now, class of 22. One of the things that I run into is they graduate with a major, and 70, 80%, they're going to go out into the fleet. And so some parents, some people might say, geez, I just graduated in cyber systems, which my son did. And he had an opportunity to go to cyber command, but he ended up in the fleet. Now, when you think about getting a degree, a lot of people think I'm going to graduate in engineering or mathematics or what have you, and I'm going to go into that. Well, they need to be prepared that most of them will go into the fleet for their first 2-year tour. So that's
right.
something that I wanted to speak to a little bit.
Yeah, so I think that's good that you brought that up, and I appreciate that. At the heart of it all, the Coast Guard is a military organization, and as much as we would like to see people going to those areas, to be targeted into those areas where they have acquired great skills through their major. At the end of the day, the newly minted ensigns are at the mercy of the needs of the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard's got to look out over a 5 or 10 year period to say, where are we going to be? Who are we going to need? How many sector commanders are we going to need? How many deputies are we going to need? How many commanding officers of ships are we going to need? And they have to figure out how to balance all of that. And I get it. I understand why a student would want to, immediately go out and work somewhere that where they'd be able to use what they had just learned with their major. But I know from my own personal experience that in a military organization, the needs of the military command come first. And
Right.
I know that they take that all very seriously. And
However, past that first tour, the opportunities really open up. There are many people who will go back to grad school, like in civil engineering, and to go to a Coast Guard civil engineering course.
Right.
So after that first tour, and the ones that go out to the fleet, engineers often will be engineering student engineers on some of the cutters, and they will be using some of their degree. But I think that if you're talking to parents, you want to let them look beyond that first tour, because then the newly minted ensign will then be able to sort of forge out and mint their career pathway.
Right. And it is they have to understand it's a maritime military. Interesting enough, For example, the cyber system had 20 majors, about 20 students in the major, and they usually only have 4 to 7 billets that would go to cyber. So most of them are going to be going out into the fleet. But interesting enough, my son, who wanted to go to cyber, that went out into the fleet, he loves the fleet, and he's going back out for a second tour into the fleet. So there's something to be said about that experience, that if they don't go out into the fleet on their first tour, they're not going to go out at the fleet at all. But having gone out into the fleet, now you have that dual going back and forth so that you can go to a station and then go back to the fleet. They don't want Lieutenant JGs to not have fleet experience and then say, oh, now I want to go out in the fleet. It's a little bit late for that. That's my understanding.
I think it all makes good sense, and I would just cap that off by saying that an ensign or a Lieutenant JG who's had time underway and cyber experience is a very valuable component in today's world.
All right. There was
Agreed.
one other question. Somebody asked, will the slides be shared with us? I did. This is being recorded, and we will send out the link for the program.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, it is just about 9 o'clock. I really want to thank everybody for attending, and share it with your fellow partners. Also, let us know whether there's anything you want to hear, any training. Again, we're going to be trying to get our next training on the different accession programs so that we can share that with people at college fairs and other students that we talk to. So just email me or Jim Wolf, who will be sending out the link to the recording, and we'll try to get out there what you want to hear. And Ken, thank you very much for your presentation. It was great.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Kim, and thank you everyone who came on board tonight.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you,
Pleasure.
Ken. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.